I probably don't have the traditional path of a law student, of a law school graduate and a case grad, because yes, 20 years in, it's my 20th reunion right now. Uh, I'm not practicing law on a daily basis. I work very closely with lawyers. I work with our legal team and with outside counsel, including law firms that I've worked with in the past. And for me, it's great. I've always been a bit of a generalist, and that's okay to be. It's okay to be a generalist. And if that means that you take on follow a different path at some point, then that's fine as well. Little did I know at that point, actually, Cleveland would become my home, because when I think back and I return home every year or so with my family, it's to Cleveland, which is so many years later, and now it's 27 years later, I consider Cleveland and Case to really be home for me. I think it's definitely my time at Case. I started, supported, again, even when I was an undergraduate, I had interaction with the Case Law School faculty. And I remember my first experience abroad was a law school, an international humanitarian law moot court competition. I can think of, my experiences in the classroom. I can think of my experiences sponsored by Case and furthered by Case outside of the classroom, right? Being abroad around the time of in 2001, working that summer in Geneva, which was my first sort of taste of Geneva back in 2001, thanks to a fellowship sponsored by the Cox Center at the law school, which still exists. I was the first one actually to have that fellowship at the International Trade Center, which is a joint UN WTO agency in Geneva. And I remember touching down in Geneva and going to my first day at that internship. That program still exists today. And I was the first one to sort of research, and I was being given a lot of opportunity by the law school to research what I wanted to do. I kind of thought that I was always going to be involved in international institutions, whether criminal or other forms of humanitarian institutions. And that was where I went after law school to The Hague, where and that was sort of my first after taking the bar, where I found out I passed the bar, and that was when I was in The Hague at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, and that was in the appeals chamber, and I spent my first, you could call it 6 months post law school graduation as a law clerk, effectively, working as the assistant to one of the judges in the appeals chamber. The judge that I worked for in The Hague was moved to the UN Tribunal for Rwanda in Tanzania, and she started a stint there. And when she was asked to pick who she wanted to come and be her legal advisor, they reached out to me, and I took a leave of absence from Thompson-Hein to go there for almost 2 years to be with her in Arusha, Tanzania, and be with the court, which was again another great experience. I started off with the trial chamber there, and then moved to be the sort of special assistant to the president of the tribunal, which is again very different political legal experience, working on briefing, supporting him as he briefed governments and the Security Council and other bodies of the UN, and this was again not pretty, I'd say early on, but early on in the life of these tribunals, and it was early on in the life of any international criminal tribunal. Now we take for granted that whenever there's an issue, the UN and member states create mechanisms to deal accountability mechanisms for crimes that are committed anywhere in the world, and for genocide and for crimes against humanity and war crimes. But this is early on. The Yugoslavian and Rwanda courts were new; they were novel, and no one knew exactly how they would operate. And I was given an opportunity early on to be a small part of that. I did go back after that period to Thompson-Hein, where I had a really, really interesting 3 years focusing on international trade in Washington, D.C. I think that I look back at that period as where I kept going back and forth between private sector and public international sectors. And it was great. It helped me develop as a lawyer. After that period, I moved. I decided, I think, around 2010, that I was going to spend the next bulk of my career, I thought, working for an international organization. So I went back to the UN, to the Special Tribunal for Lebanon, where I was a legal advisor for the chief prosecutor. I spent my time there, and then moved to the Red Cross, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies in Geneva, where I'm in the headquarters of the building that didn't exist at the time when I started. And that's where I am right now talking to you as a lawyer in the General Counsel's office. It'd be great to work in the General Counsel's office of a large international organization and one that worked on humanitarian response. And this gave me the opportunity to learn the business of an international humanitarian organization from inside as a lawyer, which is what I knew at that point and all I knew at that point in the General Counsel's office. I've spent the last soon to be 11 years, almost 11 years, actually, but it'll be 11 years in October, with the IFRC. I then moved to management responsibilities and management roles in differentness. In the executive office of the CEO, Secretary General, as the deputy to the chief of staff and senior executive officer. I took on short-term assignments, including as acting head of delegation in Indonesia and Timor-Leste and representative to ASEAN, where I was based in Jakarta, and where I happened to be at the time of the Lombok earthquake in 2018, which was my first opportunity, I think, to really to take the lead in an emergency response operation after a major crisis, a major disaster. Early on, even after a few years with the IFRC, I think I was traveling to every continent on a regular basis. It was truly a remarkable experience. And then I was given the role in Bangkok, and that was to be our head of delegation and representative to the UN in Bangkok, where I happened to be when COVID hit, and having to deal with our response to COVID as an organization where I was based in Thailand at that point, and while the rest of the world was trying and understanding exactly what COVID meant after we were hearing of its spread in China. Bangkok, Thailand was the first country outside of China that had a confirmed case. So early on, we saw it as definitely a real threat. And having to work with all the countries that I worked with in Southeast Asia on how to be prepared and what we can do without knowing exactly what would happen in a week or two or a month. It was a difficult time for us, but it was an opportunity for the organization to really work with our members and with communities on the ground. For me professionally, it ended up being a very interesting time. Around then, also in 2020, my organization was changing as well. We had a new Secretary General, a new Chief Executive Officer coming in, and I got tapped to return to Geneva to be his Chief of Staff. And it was something that I probably would have liked to taken a few years later and enjoyed being in Southeast Asia and the opportunity to spend more time in a part of the world which is one that I love and one that I've always really enjoyed being in. But when you're asked to take on a role on a senior leadership team for such an organization and to work with a group of leaders that I really respected and the CEO that I really respected, it was something I couldn't say no to. So I asked the family if they would consider moving back to Geneva a bit prematurely, so we could take on this role. And my family was very happy and knew that it was important for me and important continuation of my journey with the IFRC and with the Red Cross Red Crescent. And this is where I am now. So we're sitting in my office in Geneva about 3 years later, after returning from and being in this truly fascinating organization. Membership organization of 16.5 million volunteers and 191 national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies all over the world, including my home National Society of the American Red Cross. And I'm really honored every day to see the work that they're doing domestically and internationally, and that we're doing collectively. And I'm really honored that CASE and the Society of Ventures sees this as my experiences as worthy of induction into the Society of Ventures. And that's truly a really highlight of my career. I'm astounded in the sense that, yes, because I've had such amazing experiences. And I don't know what's next. There will be I don't know if hopefully other experiences with the Red Cross Red Crescent, with other organizations. I'm pretty committed now to working on on humanitarian issues, whether they're nationally, globally. I often think about what it would be like to be home. And when I talk about being home, I talk about being home in Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, or being home in the US, or just being an American representing the US abroad, which I see myself doing every day. There's probably no place I wouldn't work if asked, and no experiences I wouldn't consider. I don't know what's next. I feel like there are so many crises in the world today that are taking up all of our times collectively, and it's taking up a lot of time when it comes to the work that we do, our volunteers do, our staff do, and our national societies are doing all around the world. And I just have to focus on that at this moment. Every day, and particularly today, you see the crises and you know what we're working on, and that's exactly what we have to address every single day. Case has become, 20 years later, probably 27 years total since I first started a case in 1996. I think it's really wonderful to have that relationship with your academic institution, with your alma mater. Stay involved, and having only been, stayed involved. I was an adjunct professor for several years as well at the law school. I've stayed involved with even the business school and with the other faculties that I learned from, and it's given me a sense of Cleveland. As I said, Cleveland and Case have become our home for me, no matter where I am. And when I return, I feel very comfortable. I feel like I know the institutions. I want to see them succeed. I want to see them improve. I want to see them grow, and I want to stay involved. And does this allow us being inducted in Society of Ventures allow me to do that? Probably. Maybe it does a little bit more, but I would have done it anyway, and I have been doing it anyway since I left. There is no reason why you have to close any doors at this point. Learn everything you can in law school. Interact as much as you can with your professors and with other students. Think about what you want to do. Clinical opportunities, other sort of experiences like internships will help form your views on what you want to work on, and just, get some great experiences at home. And if you want to work internationally, then pursue it. And but you can always every experience you have will definitely help you determine what you want to be and what career you want to have.